Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock, and we have a couple people on virtually.
Paul Hogue is on virtually, and we have some other attendees.
Okay, perfect. So I guess the first thing on the agenda is just approval of the minutes, and I know they were circulated, and does anybody have any thoughts about the minutes?
Good. I'll make a motion to accept them.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye?
Paul?
Aye.
Paul? Okay, great.
We probably should mention that Paul is remote, but is an active member
Yes.
of the committee.
Yep. Perfect. All right, so the next item on the agenda is our public comments for items that aren't on the agenda. So are there any public comments up there? Any on the virtually?
No hands are raised.
Okay, all right, great. So I think we'll move on to committee reports, and I know Barry's out of town, so we're not gonna have a report on public safety at this one, but I'm gonna turn it over to Paul on natural resources.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yeah, the only thing that I had was that we had not been able to get a dollar estimate or bid on the project we had talked about to do some design work about some walkways at the beach. And so the person I had previously worked with at Sebago is no longer there, and he recommended us to go to somebody else at Sebago, but we've not been able to get a price on that. John has talked about this with Lori in the interim, and I guess in order to move this along, I guess I would make the same motion I made last time, which was, since we don't know a price, that we approve an up to, or recommend an up to, say $8,000 for a design work for those three walkways. And hopefully we will, through the town, be able to get an estimate or a bid, and then they would have this in hand in order to move forward. The Board of Selectmen would have this recommendation. Right now, we just mentioned it to them as advice, but not a specific dollar.
But can't we make the recommendation without attaching a dollar? I hate to put a dollar onto it when we haven't even had people give us a number back.
Yeah.
It's kind of like telling somebody, I'll pay $5,000 for your car, but how much do you want for it?
Exactly.
John, isn't that the basics of public financing and municipal government?
Yeah, but
The RFP says how much we'll spend up to, and then they submit a bid.
Only when you have to. I don't think we have to. But that would just be my thought. I think we could certainly make the recommendation that we move forward on it, and that we get that we get a price and understand what the cost benefit will be once we have the price.
And these are the mats for handicap access that we're talking about?
A little more than that. It's actually, the thought would be to fill in the current path, the access to if you're at Proctor or at Edgewood, to actually take that cut that exists and move sand from the beach into that cut and make it a solid front to the sea, and then build with mats a sloped ramp that would get you up and over the dune.
Okay.
This has been done, Paul's seen it done elsewhere, and I'd love to even see a wooden flyover. I think eventually we're gonna need to go there in order to protect the dunes. We'll have to see how the storm frequency and severity increases, but I believe it's inevitable, but we have to see. It's one of those things we probably have to bleed before we need. But on this one, to be able to build that front, I think just makes logical sense, and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, do you want to continue trying to get someone to give us some kind of a number if people are uncomfortable?
Yeah, of course. John had suggested another firm, the firm the town uses more commonly than Sebago, Woodward and Kern. So would Lori make that call? I don't know anybody there. It would be much better coming from Lori, who manages that relationship, I'm sure, these
Well,
days.
I can certainly ask, or I know a few people there, I can make the call as well.
Okay.
Okay, that would be great. Anything else on natural resources, Paul?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so the next thing is communications, and Fred, I know you had wanted to give us an update on the climate action stuff, so
Yeah.
feel free to go in whatever direction you want to go. in.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping everybody is aware of this Climate Action Task Force, but in case you're not, I just want to give a quick summary of it today. And that is, there is a climate action plan that there's a task force in town that's been created. I'm on the task force. John is also on the task force. And this is being done in cooperation with the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission's Climate Action Planning Cohort. Now, included in that group is Kennebunkport, Kennebunk, Biddeford, and Kittery. York is not part of that group, but they've got their own initiative, I understand. You can see a draft of this on the town's website. And the whole idea of this is we were originally presented with something like 75 different strategies that we could use to deal with the impacts of climate change. Now, and I do want to mention, it doesn't matter what you think the causes of climate change are. This has nothing to do with that. This is dealing with the realities of climate change. And a lot of it has to do with the infrastructure and how climate change, rising seas, greater temperatures, potential droughts and things like that. How is the town going to react to that? Like if you look at Dock Square, if you've spent any time here in the winter, you know Dock Square floods frequently. And it's really a problem, obviously, for the businesses there. And that is the heart of our community. And that's a huge problem to face if we have sea rise that puts a lot of those businesses out of business in that whole area. So those are just some of the things that we're dealing with in this. But I have copies here, hard copies, but also you can go on the town website, go under boards and community and committees rather, and then you'll see Climate Action Plan Task Force. If you click on that, that'll take you to the page that has all the information on it. And what's on there that's very important is there's also a way for you to send in your comments on the plan as it exists right now. So we're looking for public feedback on this. The group has met with quite a few business owners in town, and we've had public meetings as well, trying to get people to come in and give us their feedback. And I will say it's something that everybody is concerned about, at least everybody that's been to these meetings is concerned about, but nobody is really clear on what to do about it, especially the individual businesses. Like there was one business owner in Dock Square who's been flooded out 2 or 3 times now. And at one point, his operation was out of business for at least 3 months. Well, you can only go through that so many times as a business owner when you decide you're going to have to pack up shop and leave. So you get into issues of, okay, we have to do something, say, for these businesses, Dock Square. Who's going to do that? You know, some of them that are owned, like, you know, some of the hotels that are part of bigger corporations that have, you know, a bigger footprint around the whole country, they might have the money to tackle some of these things individually. The small business owner does not. And then you get into individual things with homeowners. What do you do if you're on a septic system and suddenly your property is flooded and your septic system doesn't work anymore? What do you do there? And does that then, at Goose Rocks, does that leach into the marsh and all, you know? So massive problems, but I'm very pleased that the town and the whole area really is looking to, you know, find solutions for this. None of them are going to be easy. Some of them also include, like, how do we reduce our carbon footprint in town? Now, granted, if we all started walking and never used another vehicle, Kennebunkport would not make a huge dent in this global problem. But it's something that we as a town should do in a leadership position. Don't leave it up to somebody else. If everybody around the world took the approach that, well, I'm not gonna do it unless somebody else does it, or what I can do isn't gonna make a difference. It's kind of like that, every journey begins with that first step. So really from a position of leadership and trying to do what is the responsible thing, we're looking at ways for municipal buildings and schools and all that to reduce their carbon footprint. So there's an awful lot to it. And like I said, we started off with about 75 different strategies. Our goal is to get it down to about 10, and that's not an easy task. But I do encourage you to, go onto the town website, take a look at it, and go to that feedback form. And we'd love to, we need to hear from everybody. So that's about it.
Okay, great.
Is there any questions that come?
Can you come up and identify yourself, please? Thank you, Keith.
You look familiar.
I know this is something I should just take the moment to go on and look, but Paul, can you give us a quick idea? Is there a timeline here, like by when they would love to have feedback back by? Or public hearings more hearings are going to be held?
I'm sure there'll be another public hearing after the first of the year.
Okay.
So feedback, as soon as we can get it, the better.
We have a hand raised.
Sure.
Stephen London, you can speak.
Hi, is there any way we can see the people? You're just showing the seal of Kenny Bunkport, and we can't see who's talking. Oh, that's better.
Yep.
Nope. There we go.
Thanks for that feedback.
Okay, thank you. Is
Um,
anyone else out there?
Quick question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Paul?
Does our discussion and proposal for beach resilience fit into the plan, the draft plan in any way? Are there strategies to recognize the importance of the beach and what it will take to keep it?
Yeah, absolutely. Recognizing the importance of what's called the natural resource in terms of shoreline protection. Living shorelines, marshes, sand dunes, that's all part of it. In fact, it's one of the key strategies.
Thank you.
Is there any other virtual questions or,
No other hands raised.
okay, anybody else in the audience? Okay, no, thanks for giving us an update on that, Fred. All right, so we're gonna move on to old business, and we're gonna talk about overnight storage, and I think John has done some work on that, so.
I'm going to back up because I didn't make myself a copy, so I'm going to read it off the screen.
Wait a minute, hang on. Did you bring it so good in black and white?
That'll work.
Okay.
But you'll remember that this year we made the decision to not redeploy the kayak racks that had been deployed for 3 consecutive seasons. And the rationale behind that was that what was a great idea, and I think that, the principal working hypothesis was that if we put out these racks, it'll give places for folks to tie their kayaks so that they won't have them left up on the dunes. Because many times kayaks will be putting up in the dunes to protect them, to keep them out of the high tide line, or people would be the high tide line. And that worked really well. In fact, we were a victim of our own success. It worked so well that we had over 200 kayaks that were tied up. And when we looked at it, we realized that a large percentage of those were kayaks that were maybe used once or twice a year. But it was such an easy thing to do, to be able to bring them down, tie them up where they're safe, and then use them when you want to use them. So long-term storage was never really the intent. So the decision was made to take away that encouragement for people to tie up their kayaks and just leave them, and encourage folks to carry in and carry out. knowing that not everyone would choose to do that, but we thought we would see how that would go. So we made the decision to not redeploy the racks. At the same time, we made a decision to take weekly counts along sections of the beach, trying to determine how many kayaks, dinghies, paddle boards were the three principal categories, were on the beach on a Wednesday morning of each week. So the first slide, so what I've done is I took the results of that. I need to have, can I still slide that? Because I'm going to need to see the colors. Go ahead, next slide, please. First of all, just to note the different zones that we're talking about. Now, this is a cumulative chart that you see right here. It went from the 6th or the 15th of June through the 24th of August with weekly counts. We did miss the end of July. Those data were lost, and so there were no counts there. And you can see the 8 different zones. The first zone is wrapping around Batson's, and then we go from the second zone is Batson's up, and of course I can't read the road, but you guys know where that main right-of-way is.
Norwood.
Is that Norwood? Thank you. And then from zone 3, Norwood up to the cross there that goes to the back. Which one is that?
That's Norwood, actually.
That's Norwood.
That's
Yeah, I
Norwood.
think 2 is probably down by Wind.
Yeah, it's that main. I think it's the main. It's the main
Yeah.
access point
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, right across the cottages.
Yeah.
Here, but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 4 is from Norwood up to Dyke, and then 5 is Dyke over to Dinghy Point, and actually to the beginning of Dinghy Point, where 6 includes Dinghy Point, wraps around to Broadway, and then Broadway goes up to I believe that's not Edge, is it? Maybe it is Edge. To Edge, and then 8 wraps around to the river. So this was, what I've done is I've got a section of charts. These will be on the, with the minutes on the website. And I would encourage you to go ahead and take a look at them. The next slide differentiates for just kayaks what were stored at each of the 8 locations. And you can see the principal storage is 6, and that we would certainly expect. That's basically 6 and 7 is where the kayak racks used to be deployed. It was right across that part of the East Arc. And 6, by far, still a very prominent site. 7 is the dark blue. And you can see there really weren't that many in that section up to Jeffries. When you get away from the East Arc, when you're on the Central and West Arc, 3 and 5 were the principal locations for kayaks. And it does make sense. 4 is, 5 is just west of, or just east of Shore Rocks. And a lot of the folks that rent in the back come through that Bartlett Avenue, that main access there. And that's where most of the kayaks were up in the rocks right by the public right away. So I made the same chart for dinghies. That's, I think, the next one. And here, most likely what we're seeing at 6 is the incorporation of Dinghy Point. When these areas were selected, I think it was a mistake, and I made it, so I can say it was a mistake, to not break out Dinghy Points specifically. I will recommend that we continue to do this measurement, but that we actually get a 9th zone, if you would, which would be just Dinghy Point, right here. Just have a small zone, because that's where the majority of our dinghies are. These are the town folks that are accessing the moorings that are just inside the shelter of East Fair Rocks. So, and that way we can still compare statistically, because Dinghy Point and what will be the new 6 would have been the old 6, and so we'll at least be able to carry these numbers forward. The next is the paddle boards. Again, 6 has a good spike in that part of August and the heavy part of August, but a kind of an even distribution of where the paddle boards are. These scales were all up to 45, they're all relative. And if you would, Dave, just tap back for me. Let's just do kayaks, dinghies, paddle boards. And remember, these are all the same scale at 45. So kayaks, dinghies, and paddle boards. Paddle boards and dinghies kind of the same, except for when you get to the dinghy point piece. So the next slide, when you take a look, this is trying to give you a sense of what the distribution was at each of the individual spots. Number 1 is up on the top there, just around Batson's. And these numbers, you see the scale is at 20. So they're lower numbers, but you get a sense of what the distributions of kayaks, of paddle boards, and dinghies. Not a lot of dinghies in this neck of the beach. There are fewer moorings here when you get to the west side of Shore Rocks. But when we go up north of, to the east of Shore Rock, which is the next slide, then we're going to see considerably more dinghies. Here they are again at Dinghy Point. Also 5 has considerably more dinghies for access out to the moorings, with very few at 8 and 7, which makes sense because again, there are fewer moorings out on that little river neck of the beach. This guy did cut off because Dinghy Point actually went up where the high was 45. It was way up, and again, that's the Dinghy Point effect. Next slide. One thing I wanted to do is to try to give us a little bit of comparison to what it might have looked like last year. Again, last year, the only numbers we had were for a single date, and that was the 24th of August. And if you look at the areas that were measured last year, Site 6 basically incorporates these 5 different areas that were measured in 22. So Sites 6 and 23, very comparable spatially to what was counted in 22. And if you look at the numbers then at the next slide, what we see is that in 22, over that area, Dinghy Point to Broadway, 159. It would happen to be, by coincidence, the exact same day, but so what, 99 there. So a third less kayaks just in what was the most populated section on the beach. So, you know, one conclusion, and I think it's probably an obvious one, is that when we had less kayaks being stored there because we were not providing anchor points. Another observation, and this is just, again, just a simple observation, is that we did not see a lot of kayaks. There were some that were up in the dunes. So that was good news. And I think that principally is because of the work that this committee does to put up the stake and twine. That puts a visible barrier there that folks are responsible enough not to breach. The only kayaks that I've really seen up have been shore owners that own the property and have pulled the kayaks up into the dunes. So that's basically it. Yeah.
So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, so good news for you.
Can you identify yourself?
I'm Mark Biocher. I live on Norwood Lane
Okay, great, thanks.
year round. So I didn't know you're doing this, so I kind of decided I wanted to figure out what's the real volume going on here. So I actually did the same thing.
Oh, excellent.
And I did it for almost the same period from June 26th to September 6th. I restricted it was my walking with my dog on a leash from Norwood to Jeffries Way. So the real problem areas, I
Yes, you
think,
bet.
you know, quote unquote, I shouldn't say problem areas, volume areas. Good news for you, I did Dingy Point separately. I have a spreadsheet with all this data, so I can share it with you. I did Dingy Point separately, and I actually did in front of the tides separately too, just because I know there's a lot of concern about the tides, and their use of the beach. So I would second everything that you said, and the numbers, I think, when you see them, will be very close to what you have, so I'll definitely share that with you, John.
Thank you.
One note on the Dingy Point thing is that my calculation was 35% of all the boats are at Dingy Point. And this is paddle, dinghy, and kayak. I did not break it out. And then my personal observation, I concur with you on the people they're not putting them in the dunes. They see the barrier and they get it just outside the barrier. And another personal observation is when you, and you probably saw this, I don't know if you did the observations yourself.
I did not, no, I did not.
When you do it every day, even though I didn't count them this way, there was a lot of, once the boat gets down, it stays down. And my observation or my opinion is, when I looked at that day, when I looked at it every day, was that it's mostly people who live here, either beachfront owners or backlot owners with permission from the beachfront owner. So, and once they're down, and then they go back at some point they might bring them. So it's not, I didn't see observation where there was a big increase on the weekend, for instance, because I did it, I made, how many? 56% of the days I counted, so I made 40 observations over 72 days. Wednesdays, Saturdays, so I had some Saturdays in there too. And I did not see a lot of people leaving, bringing it for the weekend or even for the week. Really, once they came down, it took a while to get them all down, but once they got down, they stayed. So I'm happy to share that data with you, so you can kind of bump it up against yours, and then you can maybe refine some of those numbers, especially the Dingy Point one. I think it'll be helpful.
Do you have my email, or I'll get it?
Here, just write it on here, and then I'll.
Thank you.
That's great, thank you very much.
Very much.
Maureen on Zoom has her hand raised.
We have one more
We have
here.
one more here first.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Pat Souza from 19 Crescent Ave. Just a couple things noted on that. So we don't know what the number was before this all began, correct? Is that a number we're missing?
Before
And
which all began.
Before we put the racks on?
Oh, no.
I mean,
we
so I
don't.
mean, what are we comparing it to? We're just comparing it to
Absolutely.
before, when we had the racks to now?
And only just one day of when we had the rec. We're really
I know,
not
so we don't
comparing
know what it
anything.
was prior.
True.
Was there a concern?
True.
The other one is, we don't have it identified which ones are on reserve for people who are allowed to have their kayaks there. Are you trying to separate that out?
No,
Okay.
no, and I don't know how we would, help
Before they
me.
used to be tagged, remember? Didn't they used to have a tag on them or something?
No, well, they'd only be tagged.
Well, I'm
in-
just those numbers I don't see in the calculations we have.
Well, yeah, we don't have any way to know whether a kayak is on, you're
So-
thinking of like the beach use agreement? If someone had a kayak in front of someone's house and
Yeah,
it shouldn't
if-
be there? We have no
Well,
way to
that,
tell.
well, I know,
unless-
but I'm
unless the
just saying that
homeowner
that's
lets
just
them.
like, those numbers don't include everybody. It include people who are allowed to have them and people who really shouldn't be there.
Yeah, well, anybody is allowed on the trust property. The trust allows
Correct.
folks to leave their kayaks there.
Yeah, but
so
there was a summer where they were tagging kayaks that weren't on reserved, okay? I just didn't know if we were supposed to be looking at that. It's just a question.
No,
They
yeah,
were tagged,
yeah, they were.
because I got
Yeah,
tagged once.
yeah, but the
Okay.
tag was if they weren't on a rack.
No, it was if you were not on a reserved area. It
Yeah,
was,
I think
we
it's
were
very,
down
very
Bartlett.
hard, yeah.
We were down by Bartlett.
Yeah,
It was prior. So I think just, I hear the numbers, I think the work is good, but there's some information we're not including in here. That's
some
all.
of it's hard to get, but yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand, yeah.
Okay, just,
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
the numbers have gone down, but maybe they were 99 before. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just,
okay.
just FYI.
All right, we had Maureen
Awesome.
on
Sorry.
video.
Maureen, you can speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. First off, I think that was great that we had the CSOs out there, every Wednesday taking inventory of what they saw on the beach. Some things to note, I had actually reached out, and John, I may actually have to check back through my emails, but I had reached out to Miss Cloth over at the police department and gotten the map that they were using and also the count over the summer. I had reached out to her, and she was kind enough to email me everything. And one of the things that I noted, kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Pat Sousa just said, is that the map, if you look at the one that the CSOs were using, they didn't provide like the street name, the intersecting cross street, the name of the beach owners, front property. So it was kind of it wasn't labeling the reserve zone. So it was a little difficult to really get a true actual number, because some of those may actually have been in a reserve zone and we don't really have that information. So moving forward for next year, a suggestion may be to just make something a little bit more concrete. And I know you were looking at it above, but when you see it close up, you kind of have to guesstimate, right? And I'm guesstimating, so one CSO that's doing it one week on Wednesday may not be the same CSO that's doing it the following Wednesday, right? So
No, actually, it was one individual, and that was the good point. So everyone, these zones are consistent. Go ahead.
they're consistent, but they're not specific enough. Like it's just a guesstimate here and a guesstimate there when you look, I felt when I looked at the map. And that was when I had asked from at the beginning of the summer from Miss Cloth over there in the police department, when she sent me that stuff, I had asked specifically, so you know exactly where it was, right? Just like the gentleman who, really appreciative that he did that on his own as well. I think we were all kind of curious just to see what happened, but the good news is that there are less, watercraft on the beach, which is a plus, right? So anyway, I just wanted to make that comment as a suggestion for moving forward, that maybe next year in 2024, they just have it more laid out. Specifically, this is the beginning, of this, start for phase 1 and phase 2 and area 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's more laid out, and we had the reserve zone.
Well, just to try to now I'm beginning to understand what your point was as well. There was never any intent to differentiate a kayak that is on a reserved area, whether it belongs to, it doesn't matter who it belongs to. The only intent here was to count the watercrafts. That's so, really to know whether someone was a BSU signer, it doesn't really matter for what this study was. And again, it was the same individual. Once they established their interpretation of where these lines were, be it one house or the other house, they started and stopped at those same houses. So I feel pretty confident that the counts that were made are consistent for the zones they were made in. And again, it was never an intent to differentiate whether they were allowed in an area or not. Yeah.
Okay, so it was just the number. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's good to know. I wasn't unclear on that, but you did make that, known, which is good, because I thought it was about what was on a reserve zone and not.
Oh,
but
not at all, not at
actually
all.
good.
No, this is just
Good.
a raw count of watercraft, and the intent is, again, this is one point in time, we now have a baseline, and now as we move forward, we'll do this account again next year, and then we can, talk about whether we think things are increasing, decreasing, or of concern.
That's great, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other hands up?
No.
Yeah, I would just say, I know we can't determine this, but the numbers are useful, but they do not allow you to draw any conclusions as to how many are permissive or not permissive. So
Exactly.
it would be wrong for people to say, oh, we have a big problem, or no, we don't have any problem, because you just don't know.
Well, what is the problem? The problem is to find the problem.
If someone were to say, oh, there's 100 kayaks on the beach, that's a problem. The next question would be, well, it may or may not be. how many are there as of right?
Right.
And you would need that information before you decided to do anything policy-wise.
Exactly. But first,
That's
let's just
all.
get the numbers. Yep, with you.
Kate, did you something? Oh, I thought you were doing that one too. So in terms of going forward, do you want to just repeat what we've done? You know,
I would-
refine it a little bit with Dingy Point and then come back and sort of see where we are. I don't think we're at the point where we're going to make any decisions.
I don't know of any to draw from it
Yeah.
other than to break out Dingy Point so that we have a clear understanding of how many kayaks and how many dinghies are there as opposed to on the Zone 6.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. All right, no, that's great. Thanks for all your work on that, John. That's great. Okay, the next thing on old business is beachside numbers on the houses. I think Carol was going to give us an update on that.
That's, I guess it's about a year ago. I think John and I met with a chief, and about several things we discussed. The topic came up about the beachfront owners, if they would put numbers on the beach side of their homes, the same numbers on the street side, that it would help the first responders. And, you know, I guess unless you live on the beachfront, you are not as aware that bad things do happen at the beach. My best friend died, heart attack, right in front of our home. Kayakers got in trouble a couple years ago. We had a young boy drown many years ago. So the beach can be a wonderful place. But if the first responders need to get onto the beach, and somebody calls and they say, "Where are you?" They say, "I'm standing in front of a gray house," you know, and that's what they get, because people panic, they don't know where they are, something's gone very wrong. So we thought it was a very simple solution to ask people that live on the oceanfront to place their house numbers on their house. I wrote a letter. I tell you that I have failed. We have 3 homes that have numbers out of 110. And so Pam and I, we discussed it. What do we do? And she said she saw a sign when where were you, in Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, well, we don't want to do another sign. Then I thought, well, we'll do another letter, but what is a definition of doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result? You know, it's a sign of stupidity, insanity. So I don't know. So I asked Fred to write a better letter and do it in color instead of black and white. And then, you know, before I sent out the letter, I sent it to the chief of police. I sent it out to the fire chief and to Chems, and Jay Everett, who's a fire chief, wrote, quote, "I think the idea is great for helping first responders. Hope this is a very successful campaign." I mean, if he thinks it's a very important thing, I think we should try again. You know, and obviously I did not succeed. But if anybody has any better idea, I think we're all open to the idea. And as far as I know, there are numbers on our home. Chaz has numbers on his home, and our sons have numbers on their home, and that's the 3. So.
If we're going to send another letter, can we have those folks sign it, the police chief, the chems, as opposed to just the beach committee?
I think that's a good idea.
Maybe almost lead with some of their comments.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I put the quote down. I would like to ask permission to use that,
I mean,
but that's what I thought.
I think because when people are panicked, they don't know, and they're standing in front of the
Exactly.
gray house, and you need to know which one and delineate where it's near or something.
I agree.
Oh, come on up.
I realized I forgot to identify myself last time, so I'll do it again. I'm the same person who talked last time, Kate Bauerberg. I guess this is an issue that it seems to me like a no-brainer.
Me too.
And one of the basic issues I would love to get the answer to, and I haven't done any research on it, is I think it's required that you put numbers on the front of your house along Kings Highway. Why, if the town can require you put a number on the front of your house, for maybe a lot of the same reasons, in the unique situation of the back of your house facing out to something that is accessed by enormous numbers of the public. And as you said, somebody says, I'm standing in front of a gray house. We have people coming here from all over that don't know couldn't remember what the name of the access point that they came on and try and position themselves a little bit further. We have visitors. I don't understand why, as just a matter of public safety, the town doesn't have, and I don't know, we'd have to ask Lori, ask the town council, is there some legitimate basis that the town has from a public safety standpoint to say, if you have property that backs up to this enormously used public facility, you need to put a number out there, so first responders, if there's an emergency. And it's kind of, I don't mean to stress the whole thing, but the last discussion kind of pointed it up too, another reason, just for, the CSOs or whoever's walking along. Of course, they have no idea which house is which and which house, if we ever progress to the point of wanting to look at the watercraft issue, of trying to determine, okay, some houses, have kayaks and whatever in front of it, but they have an absolute right to because they have the reserve area. We have no way of the people who are patrolling the beach have no way of determining that either. So it just, I don't understand it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree.
Come on up.
Mark again from Norwood Lane. This wouldn't be a complete solution, but if the STR rules could be modified as well to require it, right? I don't think that would hit every house on the beach, but that might be another way to go. But I do agree with you that if the town can do it, that's ideal, but absent that.
Yeah, no, short-term rentals, I mean, that would be.
That's a good idea. My understanding was that the town was trying to be kind and didn't want to add another rule and regulation and be you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And very honestly, I thought it was a no-brainer and that everybody would just automatically do it because it made such sense. So, I'll take the blame for it, but I agree with all of you. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's we've had people come to our house because first time they've walked on the beach and they got lost because you get disoriented. Once you get on the beach, if you have never been here before, you go on the beach, you're excited and run around, and then they can't get themselves back again. So, but I like the idea of short-term rentals, to put that as a requirement for houses that do short-term rentals. I like that. I'm open for any other idea.
Put a huge amount of money into this effort. It's not a very expensive thing to do.
No, you wish you could just hand them out and say, put them up, but that would be frowned upon. I
Yep.
think. All right, so you're gonna try again, Carol.
I am.
Don't give up.
I won't give up.
Okay, are there any other hands up over there? I'm good? No. Okay. Perfect, so we're gonna move on to commercial activity on the beach, and I was hoping John can give us an update if there is one, but.
Yeah, there really isn't much of an update. The town is moving forward with discussions with the tides. It's between our legal groups, and that's really where it is. But there is action, and we need to just wait and see where that settles out.
Okay, all right, thank you for the update.
Yep.
Well, that's all we can say, I guess.
That's really all we can say.
They're working on it.
I know that's not very satisfactory, but.
Okay, no, thank you. And then in terms of new business, Lori.
Ann?
Oh, wait, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, can we add to old business? I should have mentioned it before. I think someone mentioned in the email, the garbage pickup situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
As old business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you wanted.
John?
Sure. The town has entered into a contract with Casella, so that piece is finalized. The pickups will be on Fridays at Goose Rocks, and that will be year-round. They will be every week, both trash and recycling. We will not probably be going, most definitely, even though the contract begins September 1, it will not include the automated pickup until at least the end of the fall, if not into '25, and that's because of availability of the truck. Casella needs to purchase a new truck, partitioned truck that can do both recycling and trash, and those lead times are such that it's most probable that it will not be until the late fall or into the winter of '24 that we would begin the automated pickup. But that's.
And what I was really interested in was the garbage pails at the beach.
Well, that's really up to, that question is in our court. If,
Well,
currently, it's in the budget to pick up at the beach every day during the summer, but it would be the automated bins. And that I truly believe is problematic. One, those bins are, they tip over with a floppy top. The animals get in them and dig around, pull out the stuff. And the way the contract reads, all Casella is obligated to do is to pick up that bin, dump it into the truck, and leave the bin. Anything that's on the ground around the bin will remain on the ground around the bin. That's true for our individual residences. It's also going to be true for the beach if we continue to do that. So this was one thing we had spoken about before, is a thought of moving to a carry-in, carry-home policy at the beach and not have garbage bins at the beach, the barrels. And I for one, believe it's something we ought to try to do. Otherwise, it's going to be one heck of a mess if, once we go to automated, you have a bin there and people leave their stuff beside the bin, be it a broken chair or a pile of garbage, and that's not going to get picked up. That's just the fact of it.
so we don't have to do anything for next summer if we decided not to, because we're going to have continuation of manual pickup every day next summer.
True, but I suggest that might be a mistake.
No, I'm just,
Because, yeah, but we're right on. You're correct. We're not going to have automated pickup during the summer of '24. That's clear. I think absolutely clear. However, we have an opportunity. Because we won't have automated, it means we have manual by definition. I believe, and I can't speak for Casella, but I believe they would continue. They've got a guy on the ground, as long as it wasn't huge. I believe they would still continue to pick up. Of course, there won't be a barrel, so that will be interesting. But to have it, we'd have to see what we could do about that. But I suggest we might want to start this summer with the carry-in, carry-home, knowing that at least we'll have some manual pickup. It would give us the option. We'd have to think it through on how we would get trash that people will inevitably leave at the end of the entrances, even though there's not a barrel there. But, with signage, and they'd have to dump it right in front of a sign. We just have to see how bad it's going to get. And if it got really bad, I guess we could put the barrels back for the end of the summer and then figure out what to do when the automated begins. But at least
I would think it would have to be one way or the other. First of all, it would not be fair to neighbors to take away the pails and then put signs up to say, dump your trash here. That would be a mistake. It's bad enough to
Wait a
live near one
minute,
of those.
I missed that, Paul. Say again?
I'm saying it would not be fair to neighbors and the neighborhood to take away the pails, but put up a sign saying, oh, it's okay to dump here.
I didn't suggest that at all, Paul. I didn't suggest that at all. No, the signs would say, carry in, carry home only. Do not leave trash anywhere, on the beach or on the road. Something like that is what the sign would say. That has to be part of our campaign, right? If we're going to do this, we're going to have educational sessions. We're going to have mailings. We're going to have signs at each of the entrance points that tells people what we're doing. And no barrels, right?
Did you have a comment?
Go ahead.
Well, I was waiting to make sure that it was.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Hi, Pat Souza again. Just have a question. So instead of going all out again of taking everything away, no trash, no picking up, and we said about educating people, and you had said something about maybe in the stickers, you know, a note about picking, but not leaving things next to the barrel. Why don't we do it in steps? Like, leave the barrels, but put education out that you can't leave things on the ground. You might get a better, because when I was here at the last meeting, I didn't have too many people here in this audience or calling in who agreed with the committee about taking the barrels away. Most people I heard from here and on the phone was, we wanted the barrels left. And it's hard at this time of year in the winter. Most of the population is gone. So people aren't listening to this meeting. I try to send it out to as many people as I can. But I just don't want to do the same thing as we did with the kayaks. Boom, let's take everything away again. Why don't we try it in steps? Why don't you just say, you know, leave the barrels because they're not doing automated next year anyways. To try to educate people, you can't leave things on the ground. Can we put signage? Can you put things on the stickers? Short-term rentals have to tell people. I don't know. I think you'd make people feel better if you took steps rather than taking things away. I think a lot of us think that we need it. We like our beach. I mean, our end of the beach, the west end doesn't have the population we have down the east end, where everybody's coming in. So you don't see what's there. I go around and do the cleanup when we do it once a year or whatever, and I'm surprised how clean our beach is. I think it's a great beach. But I'm just afraid it's going to go the other way. You know, I did go to Wells and see what they had changed. Remember they changed it, or York, or whatever it was? And now,
Gunquit.
no, it wasn't a Gunquit.
Well, Gunquit has it.
It was York.
Looked like York.
They had put it in during the pandemic. I spoke at the last meeting, and now they're going backwards. The people are upset, and they're bringing it back. So I'm just saying, just think about it. Take some thought to it.
We could do that
That's all.
next year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point, though. I mean, it would give us
They give us a time for people
You
to
can see if it
adjust
could
to the
work.
idea.
we could
See if it
educate
can
people
work
not to
anyways.
leave it.
Well, signage only goes so far, though. I mean, I think if we weren't going to go to the automated barrel pickup, we wouldn't even be having the discussion. You know, and so that's the real problem. Once they go to automated, what do you do when the barrel's picked up but the junk is left behind? I mean, right now, all the barrels say no household trash, but I know I've seen neighbors putting household trash in, and, you know, everybody probably has at some point. So I don't think we can put up a sign that would be effective in people not just piling stuff up there. I mean, like the old tents and,
Well, you're
all
gonna try
that
to
stuff.
educate people not to do it at all anyways. I mean, you have to do something.
But if there isn't a barrel, you know, it's kind of like when there isn't a kayak rack, you don't tie up to the kayak rack.
right?
I'm just afraid people are gonna leave their stuff on the beach. We're gonna find trash.
So they'll leave it on the beach instead of just leave it on the beach?
Yeah, I just don't want us to go backwards.
No,
I know
nobody wants,
Your initiative sounds
no.
great.
Nobody wants to go
Just-
backwards, I
I
agree.
just feel it's going to.
Yeah, I think the challenge is when you have to go to the automated things, because those are gonna have no way of securing them, and then.
Well, it doesn't,
it's gonna be-
why do we have to go automated? Why can't we have the other barrels? Why can't we,
Because,
No one will pick 'em up.
because we can't.
did we think about, did we think about, do we have like a big dumpster area here at the beach that could be picked up once a week by some big truck? But we have someone else that we hire, it's only 9 or 10 barrels.
Yeah.
And on a daily, I'm just asking, on a daily basis, that gets picked up and puts into that big dumpster, and then someone takes that away. I mean, this is a great beach. Listen, we have short-term rentals here now. That's a big income this beach is bringing in. I already know what it is, it's posted. Let's take some money and try, you're also changing for short-term rental people. I'm not a short-term rental person here anymore. I've been here 10 years, I was for 7, but I was against the short-term rental. And that was something, now you're gonna say to those people, your trash is gonna be picked up on Friday. Okay, now they have to live with that, where the renters are coming in on Saturday, and they're coming into barrels with garbage in them. So you're asking them to take that on, and now you're asking them to take this on. I'm just trying to open your eyes a little bit and really think about it. Do you do short-term rental? Does anybody up here do rentals?
Yeah, of course.
No, okay. Well, I'm just saying, I think it's,
we've spoken.
dynamics.
I think there's gonna be, I'm just trying to
Mm-hmm.
make sure you're really thinking it through. It's not the initiative's not great, I just don't, I hate to see, I don't like going from 0 to 100, like we did with the kayaks. I mean, that was a good initiative, like you said, it was, John, but it didn't work.
Right. Not if it's
And
gonna work.
let's just think about it again, because what I heard when I was here at the last meeting wasn't receptive. And tell me if I'm wrong.
Oh, no, it's a terrible.
Oh, no, I'm-
Terrible
No,
inconvenience.
I think
Nobody's
here-
happy
No
about
question
it. Of
about
No,
course,
but-
it doesn't receptive.
I know, but the committee voted yes, and I was like, wait a minute, did you hear what we were trying to say? Let's just think about it,
We-
that's all. Just,
Well, Pat, we
Take a
heard
step
you,
back.
but
We-
we heard you, but when there are limited choices available,
but,
we're forced to make a choice.
but I don't know if,
And that's why we get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. me too. I'm here, and
And,
I'm not getting paid either. so.
you know, the common sense solution, not anybody's first solution or second solution, was that we all agreed that the barrels alone that would be picked up automatically would not work. We could be right, we could be wrong, but that was our,
I think that one
Or-
of the questions
on
was,
that-
asked John last time, what was the cost of having it done? And you didn't know that number.
No,
So I think that was a good thing,
But-
we should know that number, so we could talk about it,
but,
and we discuss
but there
it.
were not other private vendors available. The town checked into that.
Noble has said he will not work on the weekends, period. He will not pick
No,
up
I mean,
anything.
it's not the Saturday
But-
thing. That I understand.
We couldn't get a number because he
Yeah.
wouldn't bid on it. Now,
No, the daily thing, to come pick the trash up daily.
again, if he, he won't do it on the, Noble will
Okay.
not do it on the weekends at all for that, trying to get the Saturday. I appreciate, it's gotta be frustrating, Pat, when you're not involved
Okay,
in the discussions day to day, and it's easy to assume that we haven't asked questions or haven't looked for alternatives, but we have. And, it's where we are. This is the best we can do to be good stewards of the town's budget, the
Okay.
town's resources, and it's not a great solution. But, yeah.
so I guess I was saying it wasn't gonna cost anything next year to try to have, maybe educate people not to leave things. But
It's,
just a thought.
it's an option, whether we're gonna whether it's better to educate people to not see a barrel and take things home. Because that's what, in the long run, what they're gonna need to do. So the question is, which is the better thing to educate people on? What if it doesn't, if it doesn't work, then all of a sudden the barrels are gone, or the automated barrel's there and they dump their stuff on the side?
I don't, go ahead, Carol.
Are you suggesting we start this next summer?
It's a suggestion. Yes.
Wow.
At least we have an alternative to fall back if we have to.
I guess, I think there's a lot of dynamics at work here in this whole thing, and I don't think anybody's 100% happy with any part of it, but I think what I was gonna suggest is our next meeting's in March, and maybe we should have a subcommittee of people that sort of look at this and come back with some kind of recommendation, including some, people that are renting, people that are here year-round, whatever. What do they think the transition should look like? Because, we're staring at a fourth quarter 2024 automated pickup or whatever we think it is. But, what should that look like this summer, and what should the transition look like? Because in 2025, we're gonna have those automated cans as the only option at the beach. And are those even feasible? At the beach?
Pat, and I hope you would be willing to be part of that
Of
committee.
course I would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that'd be important to have your voice. Yeah.
So, if you're interested in doing that, why don't you circle back with me after the meeting, and we can figure out a way to get that moving. I think that's the best way to do it, because I think there's a lot of constituents that aren't here too, especially the rental people, because that's a whole nother can of worms. So, that's what I think. we should go
That'd
in
be a
that
great idea.
There's, Paul here, there's no way you could consider anything for next summer if you're not talking about this publicly until March. There just isn't enough time from March
I think.
forward to have have a thoughtful educational campaign, produce the materials, et cetera. So I don't really have an opinion on doing it this summer or next summer.
I think if you start.
But,
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think we had the luxury to wait, Paul. I agree with you, it's not optimal, but if you are hitting the ground running in April, I think you have plenty of time. You're gonna do as much education as you can. What do people have to learn on the education piece? They need to be made aware of it. They need to try to understand what their options might be, but I don't see why there isn't enough time.
I think you'd have to have a recommendation at the March meeting and act on it then, and then be able to try and implement it, right? I mean, does that seem reasonable to you from communications?
April, May, June, you got, 3 months before the crowds hit.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
but
a
I
good
think
portion of the people we're trying to reach are people that just rent for a week or two in the
Exactly.
summer too, so whatever we do, I mean, how do we even reach them
Exactly.
prior to season, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, the thing, it really comes down to,
well, you have town newsletters, you have information that goes to realtors, that goes into rental packets. All that happens in February, late January, February.
Yeah, it would have to be an insert to the packet, that's correct. But you could have a one-page insert.
Anyway, I'm just cautioning that.
No,
And
it's
then,
gonna be
if you need to change the beach signs, change the brochures, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have a thought out media plan on how to do this, but we know what we thought about when we did the kayak change and what kind of lead time. And this would be much more significant, impacting many more people than
everybody.
kayaks.
Kate,
After Kate, we have 2 hands raised.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Kate Bauer-Burke again. I have to confess, I was really leaning towards the carry in, carry out. I understand the points you've been making, and I'm very happy to hear that we're not going to the automated until well past this summer, because when we were first talking about it at the last meeting, it was a possibility, depending on how the contract worked, that it might be happening in the middle of the summer, which would have been a total disaster. I'm beginning to lean more towards the direction now of, I think Paul's point is well taken, that I think we're probably a little short on time, even though we say, because I'm not sure, is this a decision we make, even at the March meeting, or does this have to then go to the town, and the town has to somehow agree with it, or hold hearings, or whatever? So time-wise, I'm beginning to wonder whether going back to the idea of trying again, because we've always had signs that say no household trash, et cetera, but we've not necessarily had a sign out there that said nothing outside of the trash barrel. If you can't fit it in the trash barrel, you take it home. Because if we did that for next summer, that would give us maybe some practical experience whether people will even pay attention to it, which translates to when we reach the point where our only option, if we are going to have a barrel there, is the automated, and anything that's left outside of it is going to be a total mess. Nobody's going to be picking up. That gives us a little bit of experience of, do people really pay attention? Will they really go along with those signs? Maybe we try that this summer and next summer, I should say, and get practical experience of how well that will work. And if it's not going to work at all, then maybe we really seriously need to look at for the summer of '25, that, okay, folks, we tried, it all goes away. Everything has to go home with you. It's a difficult situation, either way you look at it. But I do think Paul's point is well taken, that we maybe have a little bit of a time crunch here, both from, depending on what the town's involvement has to be in the decision as how we're going to handle the trash issue next summer.
I think that was a good point, because that will delay it. I mean, it's going to need to come to the select board, they're going to need to have time to look at it, to
Yeah.
make a decision, so that will delay it probably 2-3 weeks anyway. So
Yeah,
that's
and as he
a good
pointed out, if we're
Yep.
dealing through realtors and even owners, people are making their rental arrangements, early this coming year.
Yeah, but I
And
mean, if they make their decision to rent or not rent in January, I don't
Yeah.
think they're gonna not rent because they can't drop all their stuff
Yeah,
it
exactly.
next
Yeah,
to the
but in
trash
terms of
can or
putting
something.
information in with it, whatever
Yeah.
they're sending out, we wouldn't possibly meet that deadline if we hadn't made the decision yet, even until
But
March
it's
or
like how we
beyond.
did it with recycling, though. We had a one-page insert that went into everybody's, so, I mean, that can be done.
Yeah.
That, to me, is not a reason not to do it, but it is a short amount of time. And I think Pat's point was well taken about trying to educate people not to leave stuff. It's just when the barrels are full, the stuff gets left. It doesn't matter what the sign says.
Yeah, well,
That'll help with the person not dropping their tent, maybe, except they don't want to carry that damn broken chair home.
right.
They're gonna leave it at the closest place they can drop it. It's just gonna happen.
Okay, John,
Here's a-
do you know, right now in the budget for this new contract, does that include daily pickup of the barrels at the beach?
Yes,
It does,
during the
okay.
summer.
It would be interesting to find out, because this is an avenue we haven't explored, how much is that? And between that, could we try and find someone who would like to start a trash removal business? You know, rather than, if Noble won't do it, what if we were to look for somebody that might be looking to do a little trash thing? Because it might also be able to get that person some business from real estate people or people that are renting their cottages that want a Saturday pickup. It might be, you know, some school teacher that has summers off or whatever,
Yeah,
happens to have a rubbish truck in their backyard they're not using.
some entrepreneurial youth.
Yeah, but I wonder if, you know, we could explore something like that even. You never know.
Certainly can. I don't think we can ask the town to do it, but I think to get somebody to do
Yeah.
it, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say we get the subcommittee together and they come back
Yeah.
with a recommendation in March. Do you think you could have like sort of the communication part of it ready to go, not knowing what the information's gonna be, but a timeline of how that could work and could it work for next summer, if we were gonna change something? What gets changed was
They're asking me to
TBD.
come up with a plan for something, I don't know what it is.
Well, how do you communicate it? Where do you think it needs to go?
I thought
in
I'd put on
terms of-
sandwich boards and walk something down the beach.
But I mean,
Um,
just in terms of who the communication
Yeah.
points need to go to, that might be helpful,
Yeah,
because then we're just
sure.
ready to execute if we make a decision.
Okay.
Sorry, Pat,
Question.
go ahead.
I know there are, the rentals, some of the ones, I don't know which ones they are, they do do individual pickups during the week. I don't know what company that
It's
is.
Noble.
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 That's
Yeah.
noble.
Oh, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
No.
The other thing is a short-term rental, just
Yeah.
a suggestion, because I rented for 7 years, and I always put a big, my rules, when you post them for short-term rentals, all the
Right.
things, and maybe we could send, because we know who the short-term rentals are, each memo saying about inform your renters, they can't leave anything on the ground next, I don't know. It
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
that they
no.
put down in their
You bet,
rules.
you bet.
Nothing is to be left unless it's in a barrel.
Right,
I mean, that could help.
right.
But then there are people who come in from outside the town that use the beach too, but you
Sure.
can't reach those people. But the short-term rentals, that could be something you might want to send to them. Just to put in their rules, like I
Yep.
put the police and all that, so.
No, that's a good point.
I think the town needs to give us a guideline of what is going to happen. You know, what the town has done, what the contract is. This is what the town has committed to, this is gonna happen here, this is gonna happen here. And allow us to see what we can do within that parameter.
We've got that I can do for you.
That we can do.
Yeah, and then I think the subcommittee can sort of think through how the transition might work.
Because I think I told you I contacted Bart, and the education part, I think needs to start now, because I agree with Pat, it's gonna take a while. And even if we keep the barrels this year, I think we start the education now. We go into the schools, we get partners to do this with, I don't know who teaches the kids, but, you know, to get into our own town, and our towns, not just the beach, but the whole town has to develop the philosophy. And that's gonna take time. Yeah,
But were there people out there that were?
Yes.
oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I just want to lose track of people.
Rob, you can speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Rob Wengel, Kings Highway. First of all, we live right by the Bartlett public entrance. It sounds like it's a foregone conclusion that when we move to automation, there won't be barrels at the public entrances. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, it's not a foregone conclusion. That's what we're discussing as, that'd be problematic if we do have the barrels, because again, only the barrel will be picked up, anything left on the ground will not, and they're very vulnerable to animals getting in and turning them over. But those are just the concerns.
So I guess it sounds like we're solving one problem, the extra trash that won't make it into a barrel, but probably likely creating significant other problems. And I think Pat said it well. We have a very clean beach. We have people who tend to be very respectful of cleaning up the beach after themselves, partially because we've made it convenient. And if we all like the fact that this is a public access beach. We've talked a lot about short-term renters, but short-term renters are probably almost as respectful as homeowners. It's the people who come for the day, who are not as committed to this beach as the people who live here or the people who rent here. And I just imagine we will end up with a lot of trash on the beach and a lot of trash still piled at the end of the public walkways if there's no facility. This is a public beach. Any public area that has lots of people tends to need trash cans. Otherwise, you have a disaster. The other thing that a couple people pointed out last time was we have a very dog-friendly beach, and hopefully the majority of people are using the poop bags to pick up after the dogs on the beach, but most of those people are leaving them in those public trash cans. So in addition to just trash being left on the beach, I would not be surprised that those people who are responsible for their dogs' waste become less responsible if there's no trash can as they exit. So my wife and I would strongly oppose any removal of public trash cans at a public entrance. I think we'd have a beach and public entrance disaster at a time we're trying to protect the environment.
Well said.
Yeah, all right.
I have another question. When the big trucks come in to do the automatic, are they going to be, how are they going to pick up the trash cans with all the cars parked in the street? Are they even going to be able to fit on the street?
They can reach out pretty far.
They
But they'll
can.
fit on the street. Nobody else will fit on the street, but
That's
they'll
gonna-
fit.
They will fit, so they'll be by themselves.
And it'll be early in the
The
morning.
morning?
I'm quite sure.
Okay, all right. I just thought, they're huge, I
Yeah,
know.
no, they are. Is there one more, Dave?
Yes.
Hi, it's Maureen Summers again. This is a very difficult situation, and people feel strongly one way or the other, and I'm sure whatever the decision is, you know, it's going to be the best decision in the interest of the town. I was just wondering, John, if, you know, since we're not privy to everything, you know, that goes on a daily basis, is there an option to utilize the Public Works employees to come in on their truck and just go to those 9 barrels and remove, you know, put them in the trash bag, put them in the back of their truck, and then maybe dispose of it with like a town dumpster or something? You know, it may work if that's an option, if that hasn't been thought about already. Or I definitely like the idea of the side hustle Fred had suggested too. There's a lot of entrepreneurial people around here, so maybe that's an option too. I don't know, just wondering if that had been something that had been thought about. I live in a beach town, and that's what we do. We hire seasonal Public Works extra people for our beach, and that's what they do here, couple times a day, actually, because we have a lot more volume here in New Jersey, but.
Yeah, that actually was considered. It was mapped out if that would be a possibility, and there really were a number of factors. I don't remember exactly what they were, but it was considered and deemed not really reasonable to do. But I like the side hustle idea as well. We can get an entrepreneur. That's something that the committee would definitely want to look at.
Great.
Is there anybody else out there, Dave?
Yeah, we have one more hand. And you can speak.
Hi, Ann Corby, 6 Wildwood Avenue. I totally agree with everything Rob Wengel said. I think the dog bags are, even people who live here year-round. I mean, we all count on those barrels being there if we take a long walk to drop those bags. But you might also try the landscape companies, the people who go around, they may want an extra means of income or may know other people who might be interested in that. And they're already on the beach, know the beach, so they may be a resource for some of this. But I really think we'd be making an incredible mistake by taking those trash cans away. That's it, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ann.
Come on up,
Yeah.
yep.
What is the tides gonna do?
What are the tides gonna do?
What's the tides gonna do? As a business, they're not gonna have like, a recycle bin and a trash bin, they're gonna have a dumpster, right? So somebody's gotta be emptying their dumpster, something.
They contract, I believe, privately, I'm not sure, but yes, they have a
The
private
people are
contract.
gonna be there. I mean, I don't know if it's daily or what, but, there might be some synergy there, some overlap.
Yeah,
That person might be willing to do the beach.
well, that's noble.
Oh, it's
We've
Noble?
already spoken to them.
And they don't go on Saturday there either?
They won't do the beach.
Huh, interesting.
Okay, so anyone that's interested in pursuing more conversations about trash, come let me know afterwards and we'll get that going and hopefully we can get some kind of recommendation for March.
Good.
Okay. So, and I move on to new business. Lori Smith contacted me a couple weeks ago in terms of the funding request for the Southern Maine Beach profile, which we've done $1,000, I think, each of the last couple of years. And John, can you describe, this is, or Paul, I don't know which one of you is more familiar.
Yeah, Paul, I think you're more familiar with the profiling that's done.
Yeah, it's part of a state effort to track what's happening to the beaches all over the state, and the town has contributed a small amount of money each year in order to do this. All the work is done by volunteers locally, and the state, I think, has an employee. It's part of Maine Geologic Survey that manages this. So I would move that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen $1,000 to support this again.
Okay, is that a motion, Paul?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would second that. It's I think, an important database. It's one that's been collected for a number of years, and it ought to be continued.
Okay, great. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, great. So at this point, I think we're gonna adjourn. It's 7:18, and thank you everyone who's participated virtually or has come here in person. We appreciate your time and your thoughts. And now I'm taking takers for trash conversations.